Hello, historical authors. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a diagram, a timeline, and how to use one of your checklists today, okay? We're going to first start with our timeline. So historical authors, when you are doing your timeline, there's two ways you can do it, okay? There's two ways you can present it, and I'm going to show you those ways right now. One way is it can be horizontal like this. You write California timeline on the top, you have a timeline going across the middle, and you have the year and you have the event's name, and a short summary of the event, like one sentence, and a picture to go with. Then on the next one, so it doesn't get crowded, you can put the date on the top and then put the name, explanation, and picture on the bottom. And you can keep flipping back and forth, but you can go horizontally in your timeline. Another way you can do your timeline is you can do it, so that's horizontally, you can do it vertically. So you can have California timeline, you have the date, you have the name, you have the explanation, and you have the picture. So date, name, explanation, picture. Yes? All four every time. And it can go vertically down. So you're going to do this by hand. You are not going to type this because we spend a lot of time on screens and we want this to be by hand. So when you're done, have your parents help you take a nice picture of it so you can upload it into your book too. Okay, so before you get going with it, before you make your final draft, and you're going to want to do it on white paper, so hopefully you have some computer paper at home where you can get some. You want to first do your draft of it, okay, and get it ready somewhere. So here I've taken some lined paper, and I'm actually going to do a horizontal one myself, but I'm still going to write it down vertically right here, just because this is where I'm going to write my notes and practice like how I want to summarize each event, what picture I want to do, and the dates they go in. Okay, so I want to show you a couple resources that I'm going to use and that you should use when you make your timeline of California's history. Now remember, we're focusing the history mostly on the four events that led to California statehood, right? So the Bear Flag Revolt, Mexican-American War, parts of the Gold Rush, and the Monterey Convention and statehood. Of course, we can add a bit beforehand, right? That talks about when Mexico gains its independence. Before that, when it's New Spain. So you can have a couple different events leading up to it, okay? But your timeline should end at 1850 because that's what your book is focusing on, is that time period. Although, of course, many things have happened since then, which we will learn about in the next coming weeks. But for this book, it ends on September 9th, 1850, when California becomes a state, because that's the title of your book, California's Journey to Statehood. Okay, so I want to show you a couple of resources. One resource that I set aside is I hope everyone has California Studies Weekly 25, because like as I told you to hold on to it, if you look inside on the bottom, timeline. Man, Miss Thompson, you have a great voice. Thank you. So if I were you, I would not include every single thing on their timeline. Just because it's on their timeline doesn't mean it needs to be on our timeline. I would focus on the most important events, like it says 1769. Junipero Serra establishes the first of 21 missions in California. Of course that's important. Of course you're going to put that. That's a San Diego mission. You already knew that. But then maybe where it says Jose Ortega finds the entrance to San Francisco Bay, maybe not as important. So you're going to decide which events are the most important that you want to include, but the events every single historical author needs to include: Bear Flag Revolt, Mexican-American War, Gold Rush, and Monterey Convention statehood. And when you include an event, you have to say when it begins and when it ends. All right? Because you can't just say the Bear Flag Revolt starts and then you never say when it ends, because then wouldn't we still be rebelling now or revolting now? So that wouldn't make sense, okay? So that's the first thing. That's the first tip and resource I want to direct you to. The second resource is on our writing and social studies posters. That Google Doc, the first image is our California timeline that we had in my classroom, which I know Ms. Crod had a very similar one. So you should be using that, and you should be copying those dates because they're there for you. They're not there for me. I mean, I use it too, but it's important to look back. So there's a couple of things I want to direct your attention to when you look at it, okay? So I'm going to show you right now. Look at it. You can see I also put, 1769 first Spanish mission that was in San Diego. 1810 to 1821, Mexican War of Independence, last mission built, put Sonoma. 1833, missions end and Rancho period begins. I put that little squiggle line just to help my students focus on like this is where our learning was really focused, but I would not put that squiggle line on my timeline for my book, okay? What I want you to notice here is I was putting the years, but in parentheses, I put the month and day. You don't have to write it like that. You can just write it as the full words, May 13th, 1846. But what I want you to notice is if it's all the same year, it's kind of like alphabetical order. If all of these start with an A, then you look at the second letter, B or C, or whatever the second letter is in the word to know which one goes in order. Well, it's a similar idea here. If it's all the same year, then you look at the month and day. So the Mexican-American War began before the Bear Flag Revolt, right? That's a fact. So even if you choose to discuss it later in your book, it still should be before the Bear Flag Revolt because May 13th is before June 14th. So you can write it like this, but when it's all the same year and you do have the information of month and day, you do need to write it. So I'm going to say that again. If you have month and day information, you need to write it. Okay? And then as you scroll down, you can see, and then you can even zoom in if you're like, what did she write there? I read the Treaty of Cahuenga, which is the treaty where the fighting in Alta California, or just California, ended, but it was still happening in mainland Mexico. So the fighting in California ended at this time, but the actual war was not over, we know, until February 2nd, 1848, when the Mexican-American War officially ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, okay? Here, President Polk confirms there's gold in California, Okay, so you've got some information here. You can always add more, but these are the main events that I should see in everyone's, is Bear Flag Revolt to September 9th, 1850, okay? So that resource is under Writing Social Studies posters. Myself and Miss Carrad will include it in your writing lesson again, but it's already been shared with you, so you can also find it in your shared Google Docs. Okay, I want to show you now how I'm going to prepare mine. Okay, I want you to notice right here, I started writing my notes, and pretty much I was copying it for the most part from here, which is totally fine. But I also wrote little notes. Like sometimes if it says something like the first Spanish mission built in California, I don't need to give an explanation because that is a sentence explaining it and I have a picture. But when it's just an event name, like Mexican War of Independence, I did explain it in like a few words. Mexico free from Spanish control. And then I wouldn't write Mexican flag, but my picture would be of the Mexican flag. And here mine is a picture of a mission. So it's like my sketch as my plan. 1823, last mission built. So in parentheses, I put 21st mission, and then I wrote Sonoma. That's enough of an explanation. 1833, missions end, Rancho period begins. In parentheses, I explain what that means. Missions lose power, people move to ranches. So it's really like just some basic notes, a little quick picture I plan to make, and the date. And I'm going to do that until I reach the date of this, California becoming the 31st state, okay? So sometimes if it's like the Bear Flag Revolt, you might want to give a little explanation, like California declared free country. But if other ones where it already is a phrase, then you don't need to explain it. So again, if it's just the event name, explain. If it's a phrase already, don't explain. Picture for everything, date for everything. Like I said, you can choose to do it like this, so horizontally. So like I'm going to do my picture like this, and I'm going to have, I just did a pencil line in the middle, and then I'm going to start having the date. So right here I'll do 1796, and I'll write first Spanish mission, San Diego. And then I'll do my picture of like, please do a better picture than I'm doing right now. Right? And then over here, because that takes a lot of room, if I only put the numbers on one side, this side will get very crowded. So I suggest flipping it. Okay, so for the second one, I'm going to put 1810 right here, and then to 1821, And then I'm going to put Mexican War of Independence. Please do it neater than I'm doing it. And then I'll put a little explanation. Mexico free from Spanish control. Don't write even a full sentence. It should be short. And then here, I'll do the Mexican flag. Like the 3 colors. I'll do a little symbol in the middle. Make it better. And then my third event was when the last mission was built. So I'm going to put the date up here. Do you see how it's a pattern now? Above, below, above, and this like helps it so I won't. And if you run out of space, like I'm going to run out of space, there's 2 options you can do. You can either have like a line going across the top. Wish I had a third hand right now so I could hold this iPad and do this for you. Show you. You could have it start up here, go across, and then come down here and keep going. Or you could have it be on 2 pages and you could just take 2 pictures and include it in your book like that. It's up to you. Okay, and now we're going to do a diagram. Here is Ms. Thompson's awesome picture of the rocker, a rocker sluice, and here I explain it. So what I want you to realize is that a diagram is a picture and it's labeled. See, you can see where it says hopper, water, dirt, move, handle. So what I've done here is I've labeled the parts. I've shown you with arrows the directions things move in. I've showed you the movement and the names of things. And with these labels, then over here I can explain it. So I have a title, a picture, labels, explanation, all 4 parts. Title, picture, labels, explanation. The miner uses the handle, so there's the handle, to move the sluice box back and forth on the rocker. There's the rocking bottom, like rocking a baby in a cradle, while dumping dirt and water into the hopper. So there's the hopper, there's the water, there's the dirt. And it is filtered again and again until the riffles catch the gold and the water pours out. And here, oh, I forgot to label the riffles. So right here, these are riffles. The only thing that is missing from my picture is color. I expect to see color, and then you'll take a picture of this and you'll put it in your book. It's better to do a one longwise, like vertical, than horizontal, just for this, because that's the way the pages are in your book, but either one can work. And I want you to know that I did just look it up on the internet and see what I could find, and then I made it work. And the reason why I also chose this picture is because I talk about, when I talk about the gold rush, I talk about ways of mining. And so this could help one of my chapters. So when you choose your diagram, choose a picture that's going to show something to your reader that's connected to one of your chapters. Okay? Does that make sense? So you can choose a picture that will draw a picture that will be connected to one of your chapters. And you can also, instead of doing a diagram, if you want to do a map of, no, actually you have to do a diagram no matter what. So please include a diagram. Maps will come later with extra time. Okay. Historical author, so that's it. So now the final thing you're going to do is use a checklist. You're going to use your informational checklist to do it about your all about chapter. Okay, so wherever that is in your book, you need to find your all about chapter and take an informational checklist and check that you've got all those things in your checklist. Now, if you don't have all those things, that's where you get to add it. But that's where we check for capitals and periods and spelling and, read it again to make sure it makes sense. Okay? So what you'll be turning in today are pictures of your diagram and pictures of your timeline. They all of them should be in color. Like the color would be the little picture that goes with your event on the timeline, and this would be in color, your diagram, okay? And if you do a sloppy job, and we know you by now, so we know what your sloppy job looks like. If you do a sloppy job, we are going to ask you to redo it. Okay, so take some pride in your work. This is the last couple steps, and then your book will be done. And it's going to look so good. Like, this is something you're going to keep forever and be so proud of. If you have any questions on anything, please email your teacher, me or Miss Karad, and we're here to help. Have a great day.